Good morning and welcome to the Free West Media channel. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow all the interesting videos about various aspects and countries in the world that we intend to cover here. Well, for the moment, we're still on the subject of South Africa, which of course is considered all over the world as a model liberal democracy. It's almost a utopia. It's a rainbow nation. Things are really going well in South Africa. But of course, inside the country, the reality is completely different. Now, I just want to share a few stories, with you that happened over the last, yesterday they were in the news in South Africa, just to give you a taste of the niceties going on in that country. Now, the first one that fell, my eye fell on the first one, which was the issue about a newborn baby rescued from pit latrine in KwaZulu-Natal. I'll get it up here for you. Yes, this happens quite often in South Africa. Of course, the government has got a natalist policy. It's trying to stimulate births in a country that is already overpopulated. And therefore, it gives child grants to teenage mothers and others. Any woman who's prepared to have a baby gets a child grant. And this stimulates the births in the country, with the result that many of these young mothers don't want their babies, and immediately after birth they discard these living newborn babies in, for example, a pit latrine. I mean, as it was put in this report afterwards, when the police came and rescued the baby, they had to wipe the feces off the infant. Yeah, this is the sort of stuff they don't tell you about on CNN when they enthuse about how terrific South Africa is. Another story in the same vein has to do with a BMW dealership down in Cape Town that wanted to employ someone. It's not certain whether they actually specified that it should be a white person or whether they just didn't mention that it should be a black person. Now, in South Africa, of course, there's a institutionalized racism against white people, and you are not allowed to advertise a job for a white person, but you can advertise a job for black people. You can say blacks only need apply. No whites wanted. You can put that in the advertisement. But if you leave it out so that a white person could apply, then it's a problem. It's not only semi-illegal, but you will then get one of these radical groups such as the EFF or the Economic Freedom Fighters, the extremist left-wing Afro-nationalist political party, and they will then come and harass you and threaten to burn down your dealership, smash the place to pieces, as they've done with the Clicks chain store over the last week or so. And so, understandably, the Cape Town BMW dealership was very much scared about this, and they protested their innocence, saying that they would never dream of advertising a job for a white person. So then there were some negotiations with the EFF, and apparently, they will give them the benefit of the doubt, and that they were not guilty of the crime of wanting to employ a white person for a job at their dealership. Yeah, and then we can go on, all the brutality, the murder, the farm murders. Also, over the last few days, we've had the case of 2 women who were brutally murdered in a town called Petersburg in the north of the country. They were businesswomen who had a couple of restaurants and so on. A mother, an elderly mother, almost 80 years old, and her daughter of 55. They were kidnapped from their home and then probably raped as well, and then brutally murdered, tortured to death. And this is the kind of thing that happens on a daily basis, and it's completely normal. The newspapers and the websites report on it a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of run-of-the-mill stuff in South Africa. Nobody considers it to be anything extraordinary or something that should immediately be stopped. We've become inured to this kind of violence. So there you have it, 2 held for brutal murder of businesswoman Lizette Deacon and her mother. Yeah, and the final story from South Africa that caught my eye today was one about the Minister of Basic Education. Her name is Angie Motshekga. And she laid a charge against her own son, who's apparently a drug addict, and who damaged her vehicles. She's got a whole string of vehicles, including a BMW X5, a Mercedes, a Dodge, Colt pickup, and others, about 5 or 6 in all. Of course, these people are living it up on the taxpayers' money. And apparently her son is a drug addict. He smokes dogga or marijuana in South Africa and takes other substances. And he then proceeded to damage her cars, slashed the tires, scratched the paintwork. And she went to the police and laid a charge against her own son, and she wanted them to arrest him. But on her lawyer's advice, she decided then to retract the charge and not go ahead with the charge, but she'd already handed in a sworn affidavit about his activities and the damage he'd done to their vehicles. Her husband, Matole Motshekga, the son's name is Kabelu. Her husband, Matole Motshekga, is a former Speaker of the South African Parliament, and she herself is Minister of Basic Education. She's in charge for all the schools in the country. So it occurred to me, how can someone who's in charge of all the school children in the country not be able to educate her own son so that he doesn't become a drug addict and commit damage to property? That's a question that arose. But in South Africa, it's anything goes. It's completely absurd. And it's a crime-infested, Marxist, quasi-Marxist society that is kind of legally, almost, sometimes legally, sometimes illegally pillaged by the ruling elite. And the rest of the world think it's absolutely fantastic, and they commend us on what a fine society we are. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so before, and then we'll talk again. Goodbye.